my name is Kira Donnelly, and in this episode of Post-Grad Zoom Chats, I catch up with another member of my graduating class studying theater in undergrad degree at Coastal Carolina University. Today I catch up with Dalton. Dalton was seen in many productions on campus, including Big Love, Pride and Prejudice, She Kills Monsters, and playing the stage manager in Our Town. Dalton also studied abroad. He studied physical theater in Italy for a whole year, and has always been a very strong physical theater creator and deviser. Since graduating, Dalton and his colleagues have moved to Orlando, Florida to plant their theater company, Boots on the Ground. In this interview, Dalton is really raw and honest about what it's like to live and work with your friends, how you separate personal relationships and professional relationships, and also what it's like to be a transplant into a new community when your whole theater's purpose is about bringing the community together. Dalton always circles back to his personal and his company's mission, vision, and values when he's talking about staying in the work when sometimes it gets hard. I hope that you enjoyed this interview with Dalton as much as I did. Graduation just over a year ago. So what was the move? Where did you decide to go and why?
So I decided to move to Orlando, Florida, the general area, Central Florida, really more specifically. And that was because I am part of a company, had to rep Boots on the Ground Theater. So it's a group of alumni actually from Coastal, and a few others. I know Anna Ray always gets upset, one of our company members, because she's like, my whole life I've been told I went to Coastal and she didn't. But we all made the decision as a company that we wanted to move somewhere together because we had been working remotely for so long. And we were between like 3 different cities, DC, Richmond, Virginia, Myrtle Beach, and Orlando. And Orlando fit the mold the best for a lot of reasons. There's so much diversity here, and the work that we do celebrates diversity and the diversity of stories we want to bring in. So we knew we had to go somewhere that was true. And then also their art scene is very prevalent. It's just like kind of disconnected. And that's another thing that we really like to do, is we like to take separate entities or organizations and find ways to be the glue between them. So that's why we made the jump.
Okay, awesome. And so how many people are in this company?
It's been fluctuating. It started with 3 back in 2017. That was Cha Goldsmith, who was a BFA Tech, JP McLaurin, who was a BFA Acting, and Michaela Getz, who was a BFA Acting as well. And then it grew to me, and Caroline Pendleton joined. Then we added a few more people. At the largest, it was 10. And because of everything that's been happening with Corona and just jobs and everything, we've gained a few, we've lost a few, and right now we're at 7.
Gotcha. Okay. So does everyone have a specific task within Boots on the Ground, or is it all?
I would say there's 3 major distinctions. There's our CEO, which is Charlotte Overby, our fearless leader, and then kind of alongside Cha is Michaela and I, and the 3 of us form the executive team. So a lot of the governing decisions of the company, as programming is proposed, as we make introductions in new communities, we kind of facilitate that. And we often step into leadership roles, but it's not exclusively the executive team. And then the rest of our company, it currently is the artistic core. So that's a group of artists that we've kind of hand selected, or we found them, they found us, and we all vibe over our mission, vision, and values. And they do basically everything. We all kind of do everything. I think more so than like one person having a position or a task that they're always responsible for, each project, event, or initiative has a set of tasks that needs to be completed. And based on where everyone's kind of landing in each project, that's how we figure out who will take what task.
Gotcha. Okay. So when y'all made the shift to Orlando, I mean,
Yes.
there was foundations for boots on the ground, but this was your first time living together, and
Right.
I mean, really, I don't know how to put it, like really creating a structure, I guess, like a professional structure for yourselves.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what was that like? Like, how do you hold each other accountable and make sure that you're putting, the right amount of effort and work into something that has not previously existed?
Wow, that is a good question. The short answer is
The list of
it is it's just tumultuous. I mean, the short answer. It's really hard. We didn't have a lot of that stuff, but I think like many organizations, we rely on our governing documents. So we have a mission, vision, and values, and that is truly at the forefront of every decision we make. Anytime someone has an idea, anytime somebody reaches out to us and says, "Hey, can you help with this?" we have to hold it against our mission, vision, and values. So that is the main thing. We also have a code of conduct, which we draw on a lot. That's in everyone's contract that they sign. So if you choose to sign on and work with us, then more so than Cha, Michaela, and myself, like kind of case by case, figuring out what's good, what's not, what's unprofessional or professional. We just go back to that code of conduct and the mission, vision, and values. And then similarly, project to project, different sort of documents arise. So if there's a project that involves a certain community, for example, we are working in inclusive theater right now, we kind of create a best practices document for each community we work with, because you just have to be careful and you have to be aware and polite when you're working with different communities and knowing what's going to be best for them, because it's really not about us, it's about the communities we work in, and we're just trying to help. So the last thing we want to do is go in and offend somebody or go in and hurt someone's feelings or shut them down, because it's our goal, even selfishly, that the community will generate the story more so than ourselves. So we need everybody to feel comfortable and open and safe.
Yeah. Gosh, I guess that's a side I don't consider, because I look at boots on the ground and I'm like, this is awesome. Like you're all like best friends. You all get to live together. You get to brainstorm together. You're doing the work together. But then that's also such a strange dynamic to be like working together and be friends, but you have to hold each other to a standard. So
Yes.
documentation seems like a cool way to do it, but I'm sure the enforcement of that still can be kind of tricky.
It's very tricky. I think that it's hard. I mean, I think the largest age gap between us is like 5 years, maybe, like from the youngest person, which is Anna Ray, to the oldest person, which is right now Michael Onafaro, who's another BFA acting major alumni. And so it's hard. I mean, for example, Cha, Michaela, and myself are all younger than Michael.
Mm-hmm.
So not only are we friends, but there's always, this sort of ageist thing that just society battles of like younger people in leadership. And I think that coupled with being roommates, sometimes working in our own home where we are completely equals, me and Michaela living in the house have no extra power than Michael and Anna Ray.
Mm-hmm.
But then once we start work, there is that shift that needs to be made from us and from them. And it's hard. And I think that luckily we also had a set of documents called the People First tenets. Mm-hmm. And that was a guiding force and factor in adjusting to that kind of, we call it the work-life balance. And I think that some of the biggest principles in those tenets are truthfully communicating and listening and making eye contact. So whenever somebody does have an issue or someone's feelings get hurt, you can't really just brush it off. Because I know for myself and various jobs I've had, some of which we shared at Paula Dean's, it's hard because you bring up something that it's vulnerable to even share an issue. And then for it to feel like it wasn't listened to is hard. So mm-hmm. I think those sort of things help ease any sort of issue, creative or logistic or business.
Yeah. I'm sure you've learned so much this year. I want to step back to like a broader picture real quick. So
Sure.
at what point in your time at Coastal did you decide that, hey, like maybe I don't want to do the Broadway thing, or maybe I don't want to just be like an independent contractor for myself? Like, at what point did you decide maybe you wanted to do a company?
Well, it definitely didn't cross my mind until Boots was in existence,
Okay,
because it just like wasn't even on my radar that that was a possibility.
right.
And even once Boots on the Ground started, I still didn't know because we started by doing one show. I was just brought on as a scenic and lighting designer,
Mhm.
and I thought we would do this show, and then I'd go back to life as a student, and so on and so forth. I think that going back to the Broadway thing and when did I know it wasn't that, that was a really fluctuating thing. I mean, I came in, I think like most people do, and it's like, I want to be in a Broadway play. I want to do national tours. I want to go work abroad. I want to be in film. I want to do everything.
Mhm.
So it was hard to kind of let go of that because even as other things came up and I'm like, oh, there's other paths. These sound interesting. Maybe these would even fuel me more. There was still that part of me that's like, but I also want to do this. you
Yeah.
know, I think that that's pretty common as an artist. Like you just kind of want to do everything. So it wasn't really until senior showcase rolled around.
Okay.
I was signed up for showcase. Because I just thought, well, this is what we do. We go to showcase. And then it started resonating with me like, well, what does showcase mean? What do I hope the outcome of showcase is? And I realized, well, I don't really want to go live in New York. I've never really been a big city guy. So the prospect of that became less and less illuminated and kind of put on a pedestal. And it just made me kind of take it for what it was. Not that it's good or bad, but for me, the puzzle piece was starting to fit less and less.
Mm-hmm.
And by that point, Boots had already developed a little more, so I was like, obviously that puzzle piece fits really well.
Yeah, for sure. So has it been creatively fulfilling for you? Is it what you had hoped for your career, at least in the first year post grad?
Well, I would say yes, I've been fulfilled. I don't think that it is completely by Boots, though. I think for me, I realized not like there was this big moment that I'm like, oh my gosh, it all makes sense. But just slowly, I was starting to realize like what parts of my training and what parts of my time in college fulfilled me. And I didn't really know what that was. And I've come to the conclusion as you brought up the possibility of this interview, and I was just thinking like, okay, like, well, what has been fulfilling? And I think it's devising and performing.
Mm.
Those are the two things that really feed my soul. So I remember if there was a section of college even where I was performing, I was in a show, but I wasn't devising like in a class or just outside of school on my own, I didn't feel full.
Mm.
And if I was devising, but I wasn't, because that happens in Boots a lot. I'll be on a devising team, a creative team generating work, but I don't have the opportunity to perform with that work. And I start to feel less full then too.
Mm.
And so luckily I've had the opportunity to be in some performance since I've been down here, at some professional theaters with some community theaters. And that has been really wonderful. And there's been some performance opportunities with Boots too. And I'm just realizing for me, those are the two things I really need to check off
Mm.
for me to feel fulfilled as an artist, and then fulfilling as a human. That's different, but
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So, in this past year, we're going to end happy. So, I want to start with what have been the challenges or the hardest things in this transition?
right. Um, the hardest things. I mean, I'm sure everybody is going to say this as the hardest thing, but I mean, money is very hard. Um, we had a situation. We had a few situations where we moved into this house. This is a 6-bedroom house. It's kind of like an artistic commune that we created. We loved it, but when one or two of us had to move home, then it became a very reasonable rent that we split between 6 people
Mhm.
to kind of an overwhelming thing. And so knowing that, oh gosh, I'm on my own now, I have to pay for this. If something like that happens, I am responsible for that. and just all of these things. Florida has tolls, I have bills now, all of this stuff. Work is inconsistent. I can't work full time because I'm working for Boots part time. I have rehearsal for shows I'm in. And once you leave the bubble of school, that all becomes much more real. So economic uh, sustainability has been a major challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that I'm realizing one of the hardest things to do is try to pave your own path. Like I love Boots, I love everything we're doing, and I think that we're really awesome. I think that we make good work and for the right reasons. And when we fail, it's because we took risks. But we're the young guys on the street. We're the new kids on the block, if you will. And so it's hard to get your foot in the door sometimes. Or they're saying, "Oh, can you give us like a 5-year history of what you guys are doing, or like the work you've done, your programming?" And it's like, "Oh, well, we're only 3 years old, so that would be difficult for me to give you." uh, but so I think just like that has been difficult as well, is just trying to pave a new path and garner respect for that and have support and get support from the outside.
Gotcha. Okay, so with the first thing, with finances, so
Yes.
what have you tried to do as like side jobs or side hustles?
Right. So when I first moved here, I applied to like a thousand different places, all things that I never want a side job to like drain me. Again, referencing Paula Dean's, I will never again do something like that, because every day I came home from work and I was miserable. I
Yeah.
was sad. I was physically and emotionally drained. So I applied to be like a park ranger, but like it's a local park, like a county park, not a state park. So it was a little less intense. But they never got back to me. A lot of no's or just ignoring.
Hmm.
But I ended up starting to teach gymnastics. So I was working as a gymnastics teacher in 2 different counties. And that was really awesome. I did that up until the start of quarantine. And then obviously, once that started, schools were stopped. So after school programming was stopped. And so I had to look for another job. A few months before quarantine started, I started working with a company called Fit to Dance. And they do fitness and dance for elderly. And we go into different senior homes, we go into different community centers, and we teach classes. There's all sorts of different classes. So that was awesome. But then again, talk about a vulnerable population. Once the pandemic happened,
Hmm.
that kind of got put on hold as well. And so I stayed with them for a while and helped them develop an online class program. But then it just wasn't sustainable because I couldn't get the hours. It was like a few hours a week brainstorming how we can go digital. So I started working construction, actually. That's something that had kind of fed me for a while. My dad was a contractor for a bit when he was younger, and I loved building things. I worked at TAPS when I was at Coastal for a hot second, and I just knew I wanted to do something with my body. That's why I was teaching fitness. That's why I was teaching gymnastics. So this was like, oh, awesome. And I want to learn those skills. Um, Fun thing, I just bought a house. So I knew that I wanted to learn some of these skills so that I could build build and grow my own home as well. So started doing that, and that's been what's been the past couple months, is just been the construction
Okay, cool. And is that something where you feel like you come home from that job and like you aren't completely drained?
thing. I am completely drained, but it is physically.
I would think so.
I come home like a wet noodle, and I like lay down and I'm so dirty. And most of the time I just like lay down in the garage for a second, because like I can't even go inside till like I like hose off. But I come home, and regardless of that, I am so happy. Every day I learn something. My boss is really, really wonderful. It's a very small company. He's a general contractor and I'm an apprentice. So I love that kind of one-on-one, like teacher student relationship, and he treats me like family, and I'm making decent money and I'm learning so much. Again, learning, it's just like that's something I missed so much since the day we graduated, was like being in classes, because it's like I'm trying to work so I can pay my bills, let alone pay for classes.
Right.
And so now I'm getting paid for classes, it feels like. So it's a really wonderful thing.
That's a great way to look at it. Also,
Yeah.
like, I associate, isn't your spirit animal like a golden retriever or something?
I've gotten golden retriever, monkey, and otter. So
I
take your
can see
pick.
all that, but I just picture the golden retriever coming back after like playing in the mud and just lays in the garage. Can't go in.
Yeah,
Hoses me.
exactly.
But I'm glad to hear that you said the word happy, that you're so happy at the end of the day, and like you've got a lot of moving pieces going on. So now let's talk about what the best things have been since you graduated.
Some of the best things. Wow. I think these are in no particular order, but I've always liked this sentiment of kingdom building, like the idea of like if you can build a tribe of people around you, then you kind of create this your own little kingdom commune. And I just think that like I've realized now that I'm in practice of that that is so true. Because at the end of the day, regardless of if I'm happy or sad, there's four other people who are also either happy or sad. So on the day that I'm happy and my roommates are sad, um, I get to help lift them up, and likewise. So that has been really really wonderful, and I couldn't recommend that stronger to anybody coming out. Is like you don't have to start a company to build a tribe. You know,
Wow.
you just have to really put time and energy into friendship and into iron sharpening iron. And I think that to me that has been one of the best things is just the old friendships that I brought to this new place and grew and developed, and the new friendships that I've made, and have started to grow and develop. Also, let's see, the show that I was in downtown was Last Train to Nibrock. For those of you watching who know what that show is, it's a wonderful show. It's a two-hander. It was my first two-hander, and it was really, really wonderful. It was actually also my first professional show, like the first show I got paid for as an actor. So cool. The creative team was awesome. My scene partner was awesome, and the really exciting thing about it is that it's part of a trilogy. If you guys didn't know, I feel like a lot of people know that show, but they don't know the other two.
I didn't know.
Yeah, and it's a really wonderful thing. And so Arlene Hutton, who wrote the show, plural, she is from the Central Florida area. She went to school here and graduated from Rollins College, and so she was involved with our production. She came to some rehearsals. She sent us notes and thoughts about how we should present the show, and then she was there at quite a few of the shows during the run for a talkback. And because of kind of that closer connection with the theater, they have committed to doing the whole trilogy. So that's really exciting for me, pending everything with COVID-19. That hopefully, I've never had job security from for theater, but for them to cast us and then say, hey, we've loved your work during this show. We'd like for you guys to stay on for the next two shows. So that was truly remarkable, and getting to know a whole new tribe. I mean, they have their tribe there, and they definitely have that same mentality. And it's great to have stepped into that family and been received with open arms. But that was a huge highlight. And then also, I'd say two more things. One, me and Michaela Getz, who is another member of Boots on the Ground Theater, we are partners, and it's been so wonderful. For quite a few years, we were doing distance of some sort while I was in college, and she had recently graduated, and it's been just so wonderful being able to live in the same place, to see each other every day. The concept of missing one another is just changed so much. It's like I go to the store and come back, and she's like, "Oh my God, I missed you."
Yeah.
And before it was like, "Hey, I haven't seen you in 6 months. I miss you."
Yeah.
So that's just been wonderful that that's our new reality. And then also, uh, Boots and myself and Michael specifically had the opportunity to join a arts and cultural affairs committee in Orange County. So the Orange County government, which Orlando is in Orange County, so the Orlando government has a committee for arts and culture trying to promote sustainability. And it's not just environmental sustainability, but they look at it in 3 tiers: environmental sustainability, economic sustainability, and cultural sustainability. So we're focusing a lot on that cultural sustainability. What is it? What is it that we need to do as a government and as a community to make sure that arts and cultural affairs are thriving and sustainable for our children's children
Yeah.
or our grandchildren's children? And being able to do that, every time I was like going to a meeting, I'd like walk downtown into this big building, and I'm just like singing like Room Where It Happens from Hamilton, just like in my head. I'm like, holy shit, like this is awesome. We are in the room where it happens. And it's a blessing and a curse, because again, we're the new kids on the block. So we're there, but a lot of times like it's like they ask for opinions and we raise our hand and they're like, anybody? Anybody. So, but we're there and they know who we are, and we've met a lot of really wonderful people there. So it's just a blessing to be able to be there.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. Now, I didn't circle back when you talked about that hardship of being the new kids on the block. Like, are there times ever where it just feels like, man, all this effort, like we can't get it in the door, like, is this worth it? Do you have those times, or are you able to all keep each other focused on your end goal?
Like the is it worth it thought.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever go as so far as is it worth it, because again, we believe in the mission, vision, values so much that we know it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And we've met the communities. We see the communities that need our help or would like our help or just want to make art and don't have the tools. And so there's never a doubt of its worth or its importance. But it is just the growing frustration and kind of the insecurities of, will it happen?
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, I mean, it's very difficult. I mean, our most current project, Alia, this is 2.5 years in the making, and I don't think we're done by any means. I mean, we've had quite a few iterations, and we call them pivots. So when we come up against a roadblock, we don't just stop, we just turn. And we turn and we go another direction, so that the project is always moving, and so that we never hit that point of, I don't even know if it's worth it. Because if the goal that we set seems even temporarily unachievable, then we set a new achievable goal to relight that fire and to keep it on people's minds. So we've done that quite a few times, specifically with that project, but with every project. I mean, we had like 3 classes that were going to be starting the week our government had a lockdown.
Wow.
So that was difficult. Our inclusive class was about to start. We got a grant for that class. So, and grants are very specific and time sensitive. So if you don't fulfill them, then you lose that money. We were going to be partnering with that organization I mentioned, Fit to Dance, to start doing a kind of improv and theater technique based mental fitness class. Okay. That was postponed. So there's all these pivots that need to happen. But no, I don't think we ever question its worth. It's just about, what do we need to do to make this happen?
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Okay. Now, I talked with Amani. Amani was the interview right before you. And of course, we talked a lot about, like equal opportunity for all races and discrimination in theater and racism. And I was like, I can't just ask this to Amani. Like, we all have to be part of the conversation. So what has boots on the ground done in conversation and like brainstorming about, because you guys are all about community together. So I'm sure this particularly kind of tugs at your heart.
Absolutely. I think that it's really exciting that there's a new highlight on the racial injustice in our country. Yeah. I think it's sad that this is a continuing conversation that I think keeps getting put out. And that's why there's these flare-ups, because the conversation is never fully had. And it seems a lot of times reactionary, instead of like, how do we plan for the future to make sure this doesn't happen again? And so something that Booth has been really trying to figure out is, how do we not just add to the noise, especially for the most part being on the outside of this community. Yeah. We had a few members of people of color in our company, and those were some of the individuals who had to leave for varying circumstances, family, the virus, etc. And so we don't want to claim that we know what the answer is. So we reached out to different artists that we had worked with in the past for varying projects. And we formed a sort of committee amongst our company, Cha, Michaela, and myself, and currently three different individuals from all over the country, and actually one in China who's recently relocated to China. Okay. And we're starting conversations about what are we going to do long term. Because again, our model is that we find a community and then we begin research, and we research for however long it takes. And based on the research that we gather, that's when we decide this is how we're going to present the information, or this is how we're going to try to attempt to help. So like I said, Alia is 2 years in the making, and 6 months of that was just research. And so we're in the research phase with that group right now. Right now, it's actually the acronym that we're using is IBS, which is funny because irritable bowel syndrome, but implicit bias syndrome. So, and we're trying to figure out how to build that community and find the best ways forward. And we've already made some lists of like immediate steps that we can take, and we're doing those things. And we're just going to continue outside of that committee and that community and that project or event or initiative, whatever it becomes. We're just going to continue trying to be as inclusive as we can in all of our art making. That's something that we've had at the forefront since the very beginning. I mean, that's one of our values is radical inclusion. So truly bringing everybody to the table. And I feel like we've been very successful at that. I can't think of a single project that we've done that hasn't had a person of color or multiple people of color in it. And not because we're trying to reach a quota, but just because we all have different life experiences, and we know so many wonderful people of all shapes, sizes, and colors who are so talented. And we like working with our friends. And so we're going to continue working with our friends of all colors. And I think that that's kind of the biggest thing. And those people first tenets that I mentioned earlier, that's something that we continue to use on the external as well as internal, because it's all about before. And one of the ways we do that is we, instead of responding to someone after they make a claim or after they say something, they share an opinion, what you start with is what I'm hearing you say is, and you give them the respect and the time to relay back to them, this is what I'm hearing you say. Is that what you mean? Because I think a lot of times in the not in racial injustice, that's a whole nother conversation, but in conversations about how to move forward, people miss each other a lot. There's this person trying to make a point and enlighten or educate, and then this person trying to listen perhaps, but defense mechanisms go up, they're triggering that implicit bias, and so they end up missing each other, and neither of them really get heard. So we're trying to nip that in the bud and say, this is what I'm hearing you say, and truly listening, and listening first, because I don't think, again, that we have a way to chart the path on our own. But it's just going to be listening and then using the sphere of influence that we have to then affect change and amplify the voices that need to be amplified.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think that's something that this is my first time hearing that. What I'm hearing you say is, and I can use that starting today in my life. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's great. And I know you're looking at it from all different angles. So excited to see what Boots on the Ground does going forward. And we're low on time. We could talk for hours about what Boots has done in the past year. But can you share information on how people can connect with Boots on the Ground and see what you're working on?
Absolutely. The first place to go is our website. It is the home base of all of our information. So that is BOTG Theater. And theaters with an ER. Oh, this is backwards, isn't it? No, but
it's good.
The ER. BOTG is Boots on the Ground. So BOTGtheater.org. And that's the place to go. All of our social media is linked on the website. So just go there, peruse. All of our past and current projects are listed there. Kind of our mission, vision, and values are listed there. Ways to get involved are there. It's all there. And there's also a connect button. So if you want to reach out and more specifically know how to be involved, or if you'd like to join our work in a deeper way, then you can come that way. If you have any questions about forming a company or about more specifically that path, um, feel free to reach out there or to reach out to me personally. My name is at the bottom of the screen, so search me on Facebook or send me an email, and I would be happy to talk with anybody about the struggles and the roses of how to and what it's like. So.
Yeah. And that would have been my next question, but I feel like that could also be quite a lengthy one. So we could probably do a whole other interview on that at some point if there's a lot of interest. But it's great that you're willing to have people reach out to you if they have specific questions. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing your time. I mean, you've had a busy year, and I love how much you've grown and learned through it, and that you said that you were happy. That is so important, and I'm happy that you're happy.
Thank you, Kira. I hope you are too. The nature of interviews is so sad because you're asking me a bunch of questions, and now I want to ask you a bunch of questions. But we will talk, and I can't wait to catch up and hear about how everything's going.
Yeah, we definitely will. We'll make that happen. Well, thank you. Good luck. I know you got to get work on your company stuff today because it's a working day. But thanks for sharing your time and for, offering this as a resource.
Anytime, Kira.
All right. Thanks. Bye, Dalton.
Bye.